Hey, here's a quick video to sort of help the renderings out a little bit. So let's say you're in SketchUp or Rhino, and you have your model, and you already added the materials, you have a view that you kind of like. Open up Enscape, and it might look like this when you first get it. First thing I would suggest is changing the sun. You can change it either in Enscape or in SketchUp. I'm holding Shift and I'm right clicking. That way I'm moving the sun here to see like what might look good. In this case, I already have it configured. In Enscape, I want this to be my sun angle because I want the sun to hit this and basically cause this gleam. As you can see, the model looks fun, and I've composed the image in a way where there seems to be a path I'm walking down. The object is centered, but there's still space for it to breathe, and I can change that later in Photoshop. Another things you might want to know is if you change the resolution or the size of your image here under output, then once you hit this line here, this is save frames, to show you what actually gets rendered. For this purposes, I'm just going to leave save frames off, and I'm just going to render the whole image. A few other things, you might want to add some vegetation here, at least for scale. You can do this in post-process too, but I went ahead and added, let me unhide, I added a few. And my logic in adding this vegetation was I want something in the foreground just to sort of anchor the view, some in the background, obviously to just have a background plane, and then I also have a tree over here. Oops, sorry. I have a tree over there in the background, this one far away, and that tree is only there because I want something. Let me bring that all back. I want something to cast a shadow in the foreground. That way, your eye immediately goes to the building and not to the emptiness in the foreground. So it's a good idea to maybe move things around so you can get some nice shadows. So far, I'm happy with this image, but it seems very much just an Enscape rendering. So here's some tips and tricks. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to first go back and I'm going to hide my vegetation, and I'm going to come over here to the settings. I'm going to set it to a polystyrol model. I'm going to leave the default, so that looks fine to me. You might want to bump up the outline if it's not enough, but I find that 30 is a good starting point. I'm not really changing anything else. If auto exposure is clicked, I usually turn it off so I can control the exposure a little more. And then I actually don't want a sky. I just want this to be like a black and white image like this. So I'm happy with this. Let's export it. So screenshot, I'm just going to save it to my files. And then this will be my AO drawing, my ambient occlusion drawing. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to turn on my trees. There they are. You know what? This looks also kind of nice. So let's render this one just in case. So screenshot, I'm going to call it AO plus trees. Just in case. And now I'm going to go back to the settings and I'm going to make it normal. I also want the sky to show, so let's turn off the white background. And this is what it looks like for now. But I don't love the sky. And another issue with the sky is that you see my reflections are only really reflecting the sky and what's around it. You can change this in post-process as well, of course, but what I like to do is under sky horizon, go to skybox. Now, basically, you're going to add an image to be the background, but it's not just any image. You want like a spherical image. If you don't, or an HDRI, a high dynamic range image. You can find a bunch of free ones in this website, polyhaven.com. If you go to assets, HDRIs, high dynamic range images, there's a bunch here, including indoor and outdoors. But if you go to outdoor, you can basically download most of these for free. I usually try to find ones in this situation that have a tree line like this maybe, but also a dramatic sky. I already have one loaded, so I'm in Enscape, I'm gonna go to Skybox, and then basically here I just did the JPEG, but you can also do the XCR file or the HDR file. I'm just doing a JPEG, and you can immediately, the image comes in. What's cool about this is that you can control the rotation to see, well, what exactly do you want to see in this image? And then I'm happy with something like what I had before, which was something like this. The reason I want this one is because I like the fact that the roof is flying upwards, and the roof line is doing something similar. And it also just helps sort of ground the image. I think this looks pretty nice for now. I'm just going to render it. So screenshot, I'm going to call this my um, diffuse layer. It's going to export. Go, go, go. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Photoshop, and I am going to just basically bring those in. Let's start with the AO file. There it is. I'm just going to duplicate Control J and delete the background. I just want that as a single layer, and it's always a good idea to name your images. Sorry, your layers. So that's my AO. I'm going to bring my AO with trees, and I'm going to bring in my diffuse. At this point, you're really just playing with your model. So I'm going to put my AO on top, and I'm going to set it to multiply. So it's giving a little bit of depth. It's not a ton. My image, I think, reads a little too dark, so I'm actually going to go to my diffuse layer, and maybe I will just make it a little lighter. See how already what I'm doing is that it's still looking nice and rich, but it's also looking a little, it's more of a drawing, it's a little softer, it's more imaginative. You can also play with blending layers here if you wanted to. For now, I'm just going to leave it. So I kept my AO normal. Sorry, I multiply. On my diffuse layer, I just dropped the opacity, and then I have, again, remember, I have this layer in the background. This is my AO with trees. It just gives it a little more depth too. I could go ahead and basically, um, actually, I want to play with my diffuse layer some more. So let's set this to 100. Let's instead add a masking region. Let's make that masking region, let's set this to like an in-between gray. So basically, just to go back, I took my diffuse layer, I clicked on this button here. What this does is that everything in white is visible, and if I were to hit Control I, it inverts it, so everything's not visible. I want something in between because I want that ghosty look, so I'm going to double click my colors, I'm going to find that in between gray, and I am just going to paintbrush that gray on top of that diffuse layer so I get that same transparency. And now what's cool about this is that I can then take my brush, so I'm going to B for brush, I'm going to make sure it's soft, so it's a soft round pressure brush. I'm going to make it a little smaller. And right now, if I paint with white, it basically brings the colors back. If I hit X and now paint with gray, it basically does the opposite. So you could use this to sort of play with like, maybe I want my foreground to be richer with color, right? So I'm just painting that to be a little richer. And then I kind of like how the back looks kind of foggy, but maybe I can bring some of the sky back just a little bit. Change my brush around if I want more sky. Maybe I do want some depth there. I don't know. I mean, this is the part where you have to start playing with your model. And if you're ever unhappy with it, you can just go back to what you had before. Let's do that. I'm not loving that. And then, but maybe you do want to like have the building pop a little more. So I'm gonna take my white. I'm just gonna paint around here to keep that nice, keep that depth in there. You just sort of play around to see, like, it depends on what sort of mood you're trying to go for. Is it something more dramatic like this? You could even do things as much as, maybe you find a hard brush and you do something like, I don't know, I'm just gonna paint some circles. Ignore that. I just accidentally hit my masking region. I don't want that on. What the heck did I click? Oh, there it is. Sorry. Um, you could do like effects where you like maybe you're painting with circles because there's so many things you could do at this point. It really is just a matter of you playing around. But let's keep it simple for now. I'm just going to go back to my gray because I liked how that was looking, and I'm going to manipulate this again. So gray, and then go back to making my foreground a little lighter, like so it pops. Oops, I'm just using that hard brush. Soft, maybe soft over here, maybe some on the inside, maybe a little bit on the roof. That's darker too. Whatever feels right, but really you should be experimenting at this point. I hope this is making sense. Or maybe I just make this more of a model where it's transitioning from something rendered to something not rendered, sort of like that. And again, really just play with this. If so, there's this layer here, which is this the AO plus trees. There's all these great adjustment tools. Like let's say you go down here to the, I'm clicking on adjustments. I'm going to find my gradient map. And under gradient maps, there's a whole bunch of different colors you can pick. Like, look at all these blues. These are just a bunch of different, well, gradient maps. I'm going to go for this one, which is like purples and oranges, but I'm going to lighten that layer a lot. I think it's a little too much to make it so colorful. Maybe I'll set it to a color blending mode. And I'm basically just doing this because I want to get some maybe more dramatic colors into this. If it's too much, you can change it. I mean, but you can discover some pretty neat effects if you just mess around a little bit, basically. If that's too much, obviously lower the opacity, etc., or kick it up. I mean, I don't know. It depends on what you're trying to get at. I think I'm pretty happy with it at this point. And as I mentioned, you can add people in Enscape, but I find that oftentimes if you add people in Photoshop, you can make things look a little more fun. So let's go to, let me find my library. Let me find my people, textures. People, and I'm just gonna pick some random person that I want. Maybe I want someone like this. I'm gonna bring her to the top. I'm gonna make her smaller. I would just want her to look like she's walking over here. And that collage look sort of looks nice. You can add shadows to her. She's a little big right now. But I find something that also looks nice is that you basically just like make this person either fully white like this. All I did was I have her clicked. I hit Control U. That's the hue saturation shortcut. Go all the way black, go all the way white. But that way the person's there and you get a sense of scale, but it's not about that person. Since I have more color over here, maybe it might make sense that if I were to add people on that side of the screen, maybe they stay in color. Like this is a rendering after all. So maybe these people stay in color. Normally, if your eyesight is at level, then if I were to bring this line down, everybody should be around the same height. So these people would be there, and if they were standing in the foreground, their heads would still be about that high because it's at the vanishing point. I'm going to make them small again, like they were before. I disappeared them. Let's do it again real quick. I'm just scaling them down. I'm seeing make sure that they're the same height more or less. They're standing in the grass, and I think I want to have them stand back here. And that looks pretty good to me. Again, we're just going for this on this side, we're just going more stylized. On this side, we're going more realistic. They seem to need, they're in shadow, so that's good that they're in shadow and they don't have too many lights. But if you zoom in on them, right now what I did is that I rasterized them. To rasterize, you can right click and hit rasterize, or you can just hit E on your keyboard and click, and it basically will ask you like, hey, do you want to hit E on your keyboard, left click, hey, do you want to rasterize this? Yes. Photoshop, at this point, you could use the dodge and burn tool to sort of make them look darker. I'm just basically using the dodge and burn tool, which is O, it's a shortcut. If you click your left click, you lighten them. If you hold Alt and click, you darken them. But Photoshop does have newer tools now. Like if I click on this and I hit harmonize, normally what it does is it tries to basically take that layer and make it work with its surroundings so that it's doing the work for you. This is obviously going to try to make it more realistic, but if you didn't want to go that route, you would just try different effects. Let's see what this looks like if I harmonize it. And according to Photoshop, they should be about that dark. Okay, so sure, this is the more realistic part. This is less realistic. That's fine. Um, and something that also normally looks, well, I mean, so far I think this image looks fine. Another thing that you might want to try now that we have all these tools, these AI tools, is let's say that this is just showing this environment um, in the summer. So let me go back to my original image. I'm just going to copy it and bring it all the way to the top. I'm going to get rid of the masking layer. So this is the image I had before, but now with these AI tools, if I were to use the marquee and select everything, I get this dialog box, the generative fill box. If you click on it, the default is Firefly. Firefly is perfectly fine to like add things. So for example, if I could click on this and I could add something like, I don't know, add a modern, I wonder if it knows who Jeff Koons is. Sculpture in blue. Let's see if it works. Sometimes it fails, but Firefly is good to add things to your scenes. Again, it'll always try to make it more realistic. So you can add a bookshelf, add a person. It's sometimes helpful, it sometimes isn't, but I'm really just showing you the fact that this is here. So here it's adding some sort of sculpture. It doesn't look like a Jeff Koons at all, but sure, this sculpture, yeah, sure. Now I'm just gonna merge it for now into the layer I had before. I'll tell you why in a second. But so that's Firefly. That's what Firefly does. If you do that again, select, hit generative fill, and you click on this, you also have these new tools, Flux Context Pro and Gemini 2.5, specifically Nano Banana. Nano Banana is awesome to alter your existing images, whereas Firefly just adds on top of it. This one also changes your image, but I have had better luck with Nano Banana. Keep in mind, I think you only get certain amount of credits a month. But let's say I wanted to say convert this to a winter scene with snow on the ground, trees without leaves, and snow on the building. So I'm using Nano Banana. I'm going to hit generate, and what it should happen is that it should take this image, it should read what it's doing, and it's just going to basically change it, update it, adjust it to my prompt. Sometimes it's more successful than others, but this is actually what I wanted. I wanted to see where it was like mostly white, and I think it looks pretty nice. So I'm just going to keep that one as like my image. And now that that's my image, let me go back and do the things I had before. I'm going to turn on the ambient occlusion. I'm going to turn on my colors. The people are luckily already dressed for the occasion. My gal doesn't really work right now because she is behind the statue. So let's just turn her off. And like I did earlier, I can take this image, I can add a layer to it, and then I can add or remove different parts of it. I mean, I'm not sure why I would do this at this point because I just turned it into maybe I just do this to make this part still look more diagrammatic than like I had before. I kind of dug that. But yeah, I mean, just play around with these tools and you can get some nice soft images, fairly simple with just ambient occlusion. Oh, I did forget one little thing. Let me turn this off and turn everything else back on. And something else that sometimes helps images, especially with the effects to make it look a little more dreamy, is I'm just going to select all my layers, hit Control J for duplicate, Control E for merge, so everything's just on one layer right now. So everything is just on this one layer. And I don't want my snow layer, let's turn that off. So everything is just on this one layer. I'm going to come up here to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm going to set the Gaussian blur to something like, I don't know, 20. I'm really going to blur this out a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically set this to overlay. And I'm going to lower the opacity quite a bit. Something like that. So the reason I did that is because what I'm doing is that I'm just trying to give this a sort of a soft glow. If it's too much, try the different, um, maybe this one light in color. So you can see that it's subtle, but it just makes it look a little more ghosted, a little more airy. This is a rendering after all, it's not meant to be real life. So effects like this really help. Another effects that could be helpful is I'm going to start a new layer. I'm going to paint it black. So paint bucket black, and then I'm going to set it to screen mode. And the reason I did that is because I want the black to go away, but I still want the layer there. And if you now go to file, sorry, not file, filter, um, which one was it? I'm looking for the, here it is, render, lens flare. Since I have a lot of sun coming from the left-hand side, I'm going to drag this sun over here, and you can change the different types of glare you want, but I'm just going to go with this one because my image already has like this sort of coral color to it. So I'm going to get this one, and I'm just going to add it, and you can see it here. It's what it's doing is that it added this sort of like flare effect through the rendering. I'm just going to lighten that because it's a little dramatic, and I just need it to be subtle. But yeah, something like this, you can get a pretty simple, creamy, airy, ephemeral looking model fairly easily. I hope that helps.